Warning, this video contains massive spoilers for Chaos Head Noah. In today's age, SciADV is almost perfectly accessible for English-speaking audiences. But as someone who's been into this series for an entire decade, I can tell you that this was definitely not always the case. The original Chaos Head received a fan translation at the end of 2008, the same year that the original game was released in Japan. But for almost 14 years, Chaos Head Noah had not seen an English release in any form. As of when I'm recording this, it's really only been in the last 2 years that people have been able to play the full, uncensored version of Chaos Head Noah in English. And my goodness, was that time gap super problematic, given just how much the rest of the science adventure series built upon concepts and plot points established in Chaos Head Noah. Compared to the original Chaos Head Noah added 6 new character routes, intermission scenes on repeat playthroughs, a couple of small changes throughout the common route, as well as a slightly expanded true ending. And much of the content that was extremely important for people's understanding of the rest of SciADV was exclusive to the added content in Noah, the two most important parts being from the Sena route and the ISA route. In Chaos Head Noah, these character routes are delusionary simulations that Shogun puts Takumi through before the former's demise in order to convince the latter to live. They are worlds within another world, if you will. And of these character routes, the 5th one he goes through is that of Sena. Given that March 8 marks Sena's birthday, I wanted to make a short standalone video dedicated to the Sena route, Deus Ex Machina. Many of you may be familiar with the term Deus Ex Machina for its literary meaning, a plot device whereby a situation gets abruptly resolved by an extremely unlikely and almost impossible occurrence. But in Latin, the term Deus Ex Machina means God from the machine, and the Sena route plays off of both meanings of the term. We see interference from this mechanical god, or rather, beings at a higher layer of existence, to resolve the whole situation surrounding Noah 2 being on the verge of creating a delusion-wrought utopia. They claim that Noah 2 has the power to crash or potentially even wipe the simulation they exist in. Such would serve to contrast the ISA route, where we see interference from this spiritual higher power. From what seems to be the work of this greater will, ISA uniquely has access to the Gladiol saga, which prophesizes future events, including that Noah 2 will lead to an apocalypse or the end of the world if not stopped. Both routes thus involve this interference from a higher power to stop Noah 2. In the Sena route, let's say you believe whoever's typing on the terminal. If you do, then that establishes 4 particular conclusions about Chaos Head Noah, and by extension, also the rest of the science adventure series. The first of these conclusions is that the series takes place in a multi-layered simulation. Much of the material earlier on in the game strongly hints at this point. Takumi has delusions upon delusions about someone controlling him the way he was controlling Neidhart and Esso. Indeed, whose eyes are those eyes? Then in the Crying Sky route, Takumi sees his own delusions through a monitor. And then of course, all of Sena's commentary about humans being electronic devices, the world being composed of zeros, ones, and minus ones, as well as D-swords being shortcuts to access the said minus one, strongly hint towards such a conclusion as well. Even whoever's typing on the terminal points out that everything being electronic devices means they're all just digital data, with death being easy to undo at a meta level. Additionally, the lyrics of Chaos Head Noah's songs, most blatantly those of Fake Me, Find the Blue, as well as Chaos Logic, also suggest that the series might be in a simulation too. Are all of these hints just red herrings? Or is the series actually in a simulation? That's something to pay close attention to as you continue past Chaos Head Noah and into the rest of the series. Now, the second major conclusion of the Sena route is that the Committee of 300, at the very least, the Committee of 300 that we see within the existing simulation, isn't actually real. Rather, it's just a bunch of factions, each believing themselves to be the Committee of 300. The true Committee of 300 exists on a higher layer of existence, administering the simulation for reasons unknown. As you're going through Steins Gate and the subsequent entries in the series, I would suggest you go through them with this in mind. In any case, The third conclusion the Sena root would establish about the series is that this simulation has self-correcting mechanisms like the debuggers. These are contactees or otherwise people within the existing simulation who are contacted by the Committee of 300 from the layer of existence above them in order to eliminate errors and stabilize the simulation. As we know from the root's post-credit scene and the Maniac's guidebook, in Chaos at Noah, the debugger we see is Momose. But speaking of the post-credit scene, that leads us into the fourth major conclusion the Sena root establishes, that it's possible for some errors to bypass the simulation's self-correcting mechanisms like the coin locker baby that survives at the root's end. The combination of the simulation having self-regulating mechanisms and these very mechanisms not being foolproof is quite interesting. It really begs the question of how significant an error needs to be for it to warrant being corrected. These four implications established by the Sena root thus drastically affect everything you fundamentally understand about SciADV, on a conceptual level, narrative level, and thematic level. For me especially, having experienced Chaos at Noah after the majority of the series passed it, reading this root completely blew my mind. It drastically recontextualized everything I thought I knew about SciADV, and it became increasingly clear just how crucial it was for people to have started the series with Chaos at Noah to understand much of what came after it. After all, the series taking place in a simulation is outright revealed right from the series' first entry, establishing it as an essential aspect of SciADV's overall premise. But in any case, these conclusions are reliant upon us believing the people typing in the terminal. What if they are lying? After all, the very point of the Sena root is doubt. In the common root, Sena herself asked SciADV's series-defining question: is the scenery your eyes perceive truly real? Chaos at Noah and SciADV as a whole are fundamentally about addressing this question. This is a series about questioning the very nature of the world, a series of tales at the boundary between what is real and what is fake, the boundary between delusion and reality. You can never be entirely sure if what you're seeing or hearing is definitively real. Sena during the root questions why the true Committee of 300 would just suddenly reveal themselves in such a way, and doubts that they truly are who they say they are and from a higher layer of existence. She further questions why they would so much as use the same language as them. Sena and Takumi are skeptical as to why the Committee of 300 would not be able to directly intervene in the simulation, as well as why they couldn't just use speakers to communicate with them, to which Hatano suspects is because they do not want to reveal their identity. The post-credits scene and Naota Takahashi's commentary in the science adventure series Maniac's Guidebook thus confirmed that you can interpret the root's events as possibly being the work of Momose, who is just lying or trolling Takumi, Sena, and Hatano. While perhaps a little tricky to do, you can still fully explain the events of the Sena root if Momose or whoever is writing on the terminal is just lying. While Sena and Takumi could not see any cameras in the room, whoever's typing on the terminal could just be using a hidden microphone near the monitor to listen in on them. Perhaps the baby in the coin locker just happened to be placed there, or maybe Suwa or Momose put it there themselves. And perhaps Takumi's belief in being in a simulation just gave him the placebo effect needed to obtain his D-sword. Such assumptions would make it possible to explain the events of the Sena root without the story necessarily being in a simulation. Nonetheless, have you heard of the principle of parsimony or Occam's razor? It's the understanding that the simplest explanation for a phenomenon, or rather, the explanation requiring the least amount of assumptions, is most often the correct one. In a number of sciences, this principle is extremely important for scientific practice, even in fields as unrelated to SciADV as evolutionary biology and phylogeny. And this principle is one that I would also incorporate here. The simplest explanation for all these happenstances in the Sena root, the rest of Chaos at Noah, and also the rest of the series, is that they are indeed in a multi-layered simulation, and whoever's typing in the terminal is telling the truth, at least for the most part. It is possible that some of what they're saying is true, and some of what they're saying is not true. But alas, multiple possibilities persist. The one firmly remains far more parsimonious than the rest. Thanks for watching, everyone. Special thanks to Eneravan and Maxi for proofreading this video script. For you viewers, as you progress past Chaos at Noah and move on to the subsequent entries in the series, I would keep this route and its implications in mind. And in addition to that, maybe pay attention to some of the terms they use throughout the series. Always bear in mind what you can explain and what you can't.
O 前だな。